and what do you do?
I'm Tyler Jenkins, and I'm currently a police officer with the Rankin Police Department in West Virginia.
Um, what did you do in the Marines?
I was a machine gunner.
Okay. Growing up, what characteristics or behaviors were displayed by the men in your life?
Um, I don't know. I had good leaders, for sure. I mean, I'd say good father figures. The super responsible older brother had good good guidance from my father, and so I always had good male figures in my life, for sure.
What like, what characteristics or stuff like made you believe that they were good? Like,
Um, my dad just always seemed very insightful. Um, he was always a good. He was always very good at making me see like different perspectives on things. To where I don't know, I was a super rambunctious and rebellious kid. So most people that would correct me did it in a way that I just didn't understand or it just didn't compute. My dad always had a good way of doing stuff. He always had a good way of settling me down and making me see different perspectives on things. He taught me a lot about like responsibility for sure, and speaking as well for sure. He always spoke really well. I try to talk like him as much as I can.
very put together.
Yeah, yeah, super. Yeah.
But, uh, what year you wanted to join the Marines?
I actually tried to join the Marines when I was 18, and I think my parents were like super against it, and I had ADHD as a kid, so I tried to join when I was 18, and and somehow, some way, I don't remember when, MEPS got a hold of like some paperwork about my ADHD, and I think the doctors not to send or something, and that took me out of getting recruited for like 8 years, and then I just when I was like 26, uh, one last time I tried, and ended up being able to. So, but what ultimately drove me to it was just I think the same reason everybody else was. They were the Marines. You always get told that's the toughest branch. I was going to do it, and it's kind of an achievable goal. I think more than like people that go out to like be Navy SEALs or PJ.
Mm-hmm.
You be a Marine, it's an achievable goal, and you still get to, get to be called like, the toughest branch. Um, so that's why I went there. It seemed realistic and it seemed like the hardest thing that I could do. I'm not gonna say I didn't regret certain aspects of that later, but
Did did you have anyone in your family that was in the Marines?
no. So I
No.
had, so I had my grandfather on my um, mom's side was a machine gunner in the army.
Okay.
Um, he actually got a letter of accommodation because during combat he fought in Guadalcanal, and he was a gunning, and his machine gunner got shot and rolled him off like we do in the drills, and started gunning again, and so he got a letter of accommodation for that, which is crazy, because
Yeah.
now because now they give a lot more for something for like
A
that.
lot less.
Yeah. So um, I had the machine gunner on my mom's side, and then my dad's side was he was a machine gunner in the Navy and operated 50 cals. And I actually didn't know either one of them were. I knew both of them were military, but I actually didn't know either one of them were machine gunners until I was all the way through infantry school. Someone told me. So,
Cool.
so it ended up,
Funny how that works.
yeah.
Kind of going to the next question. Can you give me an overview of your career?
Um, an overview of my career. Um, I never moved. I think I was just so comfortable gunning. Obviously, I went to Paris Island. Went to Paris Island, Staff Sergeant Tribell was my senior drill instructor. Um, I don't even remember the other one's names. Um, I think Tribell just kind of followed me through my whole career, so I remember him. I went to Paris Island, um, and then I went to infantry school on the East Coast as well. Went to Camp Geiger, did infantry school there. I was one of the very few that got selected to go to West Coast. Everyone, or 29 Palms. Everyone else got selected to go to East Coast. Um, and I remember I got the orders for 29 Palms, and all I saw was California. I didn't know what 29 Palms was. So I got the orders to 29 Palms, and I thought California, that sounds nice. And then I remember I took a taxi from the airport to the base, and the further, and I landed in Palm Springs, I was like, man, this is nice. Yeah, I'm gonna love it here. And then the further I got to 29 Palms, things just started disappearing, and stopped seeing like palm trees, and like started seeing like more tumbleweeds. And I was like,
Was it night or daytime?
it was daytime, and then the taxi driver dropped me off right in the middle of the base. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what building I was supposed to go to or anything. He just dropped me off. And that was all he had for me. And I just figured it out. So it was definitely an interesting experience. I definitely had that like, oh man, what have I done? Like type of like mentality when I was home. So from then on, I was a machine gunner, and I really never moved on past machine gunner. I don't think it was lack of motivation. I just think that I was so comfortable at shooting on the gun and getting the gun set up, and I was probably one of the fastest, if not the fastest, at getting the gun up and getting on target uh, fast enough. And I think I just never really moved up because I was like, I don't know, I do this so well that I just want to stay doing this. So I never really became a like section leader, squad leader. I don't remember. I did team leading, but I just never wanted to move off the gun. I love gunning. That was the only thing I wanted to do. So
And you were in 1-7?
yeah,
Kind of.
yeah, yeah. And I was in 1-7 Animal Company. Yep.
And then when did you get out?
I got out in 20. I got in 2017. I got out in 2021. In the spring of 2021.
Were the men who led you generally good leaders or not?
Uh, generally,
In your opinion?
generally is such a tough statement. It's way too broad because there's so many different leaders in the Marines, and I think the thing that makes Marine leaders so unique is, for most people, not necessarily me because I was 26 when I got in, but most people get in when they're 18. So for most people, it's their first leadership role. Right when they get in, right off the bat, boom, they're a leader. A couple years in, they've been led for a couple years, and then boom, now you're a leader. Now you're a team leader. Now you're in charge of your boots or whatever. And it's such a mixed bag. I had leaders that really stood out. I had leaders that I thought to myself maybe should have been a leader somewhere else first. And I think I can categorize it probably in three ways. I could probably categorize it like I had leaders that I didn't like but I respected. I had leaders that I liked and that I respected, and then I had leaders that I didn't like and I didn't respect. And I could put just about all of them in those three categories.
That makes sense. I like the category. You have a lot of leaders.
Yeah. And they're all different.
They are all different.
And they're all molded by their experiences. Yeah. Just some of them have them and some of them don't.
Some of them don't listen to the experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you share a personal experience where you experienced exception?
Yeah. I've had a few instances. Like I said, it's definitely hit or miss for leaders. I had a great drill instructor. I had Cpl. He was a good leader. Cpl is definitely one of those dudes that I respected a lot. You know, and I respect him for a lot of reasons. You know, he had more rings than all the other drill instructors, and more rings than I ever knew of any drill instructor having. So I know.
What does a ring signify?
The honor platoons. They get them for honor platoons, I think. And yeah, I think he showed us one time. He had like 6 or 7. I don't know. He had more. I think he did like one more um, rotation than all the rest of them. I don't know. He was. You could tell he was a super squared away guy. I mean, the guy like, and my thing is you know, I'm not gonna tell Tribell's story for him.
Yeah.
You know, as to why I respect him. And I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that, you know, me and the dude hung out or, you know, even like the guy, but I respect the hell out of him, and you can tell by just a person, the way a person carries himself and dresses. And you know, when I do my job now, I freaking, you know, I tailor all my shit. I tailor my clothes. You know, I keep the same haircut that I had when I was in the service. Part of the reason is I'm a little gray, so it makes it easier besides. But you know, I keep that same look. I keep that same squared away look because I always looked at him and I said, man, like a lot of these drill instructors kind of look like a bag of ass. And you know, they're the ones that I'm supposed to come in here and be intimidated by, and be, you know, and be intimidated by, and want to jump when they say jump. And there's probably only one person I was intimidated by. It was Tribell, just because of the way he carried himself, the way he dressed, and the way he talked. And I'd say that was a good one. Another good one I had. Another good I had and didn't work under was Mintz. Mintzevich. I don't know what rank he is now. Mintzevich is one of my best friends. I spent a lot of time around him. And I'm going to tell you what, Mintz was given a lot of responsibility super early, and he carried it like it was nobody's business. And he wouldn't know it by talking to him. He didn't have any arrogance or anything about him. He was super humble. And I think I completely idolized that about Mintzevich. That's something I couldn't do, you know, like is be in the positions that he was in and carrying it like there was nothing. And I tell you, if he's wherever he's at, whoever he's under, if they're not utilizing that, then you know they're messing up. Because I was absolutely, like, towards the second half of my career, absolutely blown away by how good of a leader Mintz was and how he was able to just do everything and just do it and do it well. And he was thrown to the wolves because all his leadership left, and it was just him and a couple others left, and he took the ball. So I was super impressed by him. And you know, I could sit here and go on and on about leaders that I didn't like and leaders that I do like, and you know, and like I said, those 3 categories. I could sit here and go on and on about it, but you know, those are 2 that just come off the top of my head. There's a few though, for sure.
All right. I know you said you were on the gun a lot, but like you've definitely been in leadership roles throughout your life, going after the Marines. So what challenges have you faced personally? What things did you have to realize or check yourself with?
I check myself just about every 3 or 4 years. I've been a correctional officer for 4 years. I was a Marine for 4 years, and now I've been a police officer for 2. And every stage, you know, like when I went into corrections, I think humbling yourself is the biggest obstacle. It's the biggest and the easiest at the same time, but it's hard. You know, when I was in corrections, you know, I was treated like a boot. Probably not the severity to, you know, I was in the military, but you know, you're treated like this new fresh guy. Mm-hmm. When I first walked into the jail and put the uniform on, I went to shake the hand of one of my supervisors and introduce myself, you know, and then walked away from me. And it stuck with me forever. I still talk to him about things. I'm friends with him now, but he doesn't remember it at all. But I'm like, it happened. So it was hard. I had to humble myself there and learn. And then, you know, towards the end of my career there, I got really good at it. I got super good. You know, I was doing jobs that people didn't do at my rank. And when it was time to move on, I went to the Marines. And the same deal. I had to go from giving the orders to taking them. And man, that was tough. It was tough because I was younger then, hadn't had that experience then. I had to humble myself, get through that, be led by people that were younger than I was, less experienced in life than I was, um, and, and accept it, and accept that I had to be led by people that I didn't respect, and I did, and I had to be led by both. Um, and then towards the end, I got my junior Marines. I thought I did a pretty damn good job with them, for the little time I had them, and went from being somewhat of a leader there, and then got out because I was just ready to get out. When I started police work, it's all over again. I had to go down to the academy, and the state police academy here is what you go through, and it's tough, man. It's very similar to the training I went through in boot camp. Um, I try to make it as much as possible, but and had to re-humble myself all over again. Like none of these people have been Marines. None of these people have done what I've done, but I still gotta, still had to re-humble myself and learn it all over again, and learn how to do that all over again. And start back at the bottom. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah.
I might have gotten off.
Yeah, okay.
So.
Go back to it. I want you to talk about how you led your junior Marines a little bit. Like, where was your head at?
My perspective was when I when I came in and I got done with the boot camps and I got done with the being led by staff sergeants, and I got done with infantry school. And I got done being led there by sergeants, staff sergeants, gunnery sergeants, whoever else. When I got stationed, they told me like that all the junior Marines were going to be like, these big jerks, and I was like, whatever, I made it this far, So I got there, and all of them were like, like 19, 20-year-olds, and I just never got that because all of us were peacetime Marines, and it's not like none of these guys have really led anyone into battle, and I never really got that concept. But I won't say that. I got it to an extent. I got it to the extent of you need these people to respect you. You need these people to follow an order, and they're given an order. Because when shit hits the fan, pardon my French, can I touch on that?
Yeah, okay.
when shit hits the fan, you have to. These people have to be able to listen to you, and they have to be able. But the main thing is they have to be able to learn from you. And to be honest with you, I didn't want to learn from a lot of the Lance schools I had. I had a few that I did, but I had a few that were just straight up, like jerks, and I didn't want to follow anything. And I think a lot of people think that it's the work that we do that forms our attitude, but it's not. I think it's more of the people we have to follow. And the instructions we have to follow that wear you down. Because the people you have to follow, there's the ones that wear you down, for sure. So when I got my guys, I told myself when I was a junior Marine, I said, I'm never going to treat my juniors like this. And I told a couple of my seniors that too, when we started getting cordial with one another after a few years. And they said, yeah, we said that too. And I said, well, I'll take that challenge for sure. And then when I did, and I didn't have juniors long, maybe the last 6 months of my career, and I had 3 guys underneath me, and I said, look, this is what I'm good at. I said I'm good at setting this gun up fast. I'm good at fixing this gun. And I'm good at getting on target first. I said if you need anything further from me, I'll get you somebody that knows me. And I let my dudes, know what I expected, and I treated them with fairness. I never talked to them like they were, pieces of garbage, like I was talked to. And I think the main thing, and I think they respected me for it, but only certain people can do that, and that's what separates your leaders, is that you have leaders that are just that. They're leaders. They don't have, cracks in their armor, and they command that respect without actually verbally commanding it. If you have to verbally command your respect to get someone to lead you, you have to talk down to somebody and treat them like garbage to get them to respect you or follow you, then you're not worthy of it, in my opinion. Because the people that I would follow off a cliff were just the most squared away dudes, and if they had cracks in their armor, they were honest about it. And they brought me to somebody else that, you know, was better at that for me to learn from. And that to me, that's just the biggest, dart I could throw on what leadership is.
Kind of segue perfectly into the next question, which is, how do you perceive vulnerability, and how does it relate to strength?
Vulnerability as far as
However you want to take it, being vulnerable of, like how you said, chinks in their armor. They knew where they were lacking, or like however you want to take it.
vulnerability is all in how you take it. I mean, like I said, you got to be worthy of being a leader. I have been led by people that sometimes I felt I knew more than, but they commanded that respect so much that I just led them anyway. So I knew they weren't going to steer me wrong. And I would say, as far as being vulnerable goes, I always told my guys this. Like I said, I only led like a group of 3 because my ass stayed on the gun because that's where I felt I belonged, and that's where I thought that I was the most benefit to everyone around me was that guy. So I only led about 3 guys, and I always told my guys this. I always said, no matter who you are, you're going to be, you're not going to be the guy that's good at everything. And if you are that guy, cool. Start out being good at one thing. Be the absolute best at that one thing. Pick one thing that you're good at, whether it be, PTing, gunning, your knowledge, your, team leading skills, your gunning skills, whatever it may be. You might be good at teaching, teaching this stuff. That comes back to your knowledge. Whatever you're good at, pick that one thing. Be the best at it every time. Once you're the best at that, if you feel like you can move on to other things, in which case in this profession, I felt like I was more beneficial staying with the one thing that I knew. If you feel that you've mastered what you've mastered and you feel like growing to other things and you feel like you're capable of it, then go do it. But never the place where people go wrong, and I'm not necessarily talking about leadership, so I'm just talking about your general Marines. The worst thing you could be in the Marine Corps is subpar at everything, because you have no use to you. Every single person in front of you, that's in your platoon, is better at something that you're doing. You have to be the best at something. You can't be subpar at everything. You can't be subpar at everything. And I'm at the risk of repeating myself. As long as you're good, as long as you're the absolute best at one thing, you have some use to you. You have some use to you to someone, because someone says, "Hey, this guy, no one's better than him at this thing." So, and there was a lot of people that that were superstars that can move on to that. They were just natural born to do this job. That could move on from that and got the rest of it. But you have to have some use, especially at a junior level. You have to have some use of you. My ass wasn't the best at carrying weight. I sucked at hiking. I was falling back. People be pushing me and stuff. Be like, man, Jenkins is a shitty hiker. Jenkins don't shave 100% of the time when he's in formation. But there would always be one motherfucker. Excuse my language. There would always be one guy that would be like, yeah, but he's a damn good gunner though. So if I didn't have that, I'd be a burden. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be the only thing that I was known for. Was those 2 things. If I was subpar at everything, you gotta be good at something. Everything else will come, if it wants to. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah.
For that question?
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think resilience looks different for the leader versus the one being led?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
I think the main thing that I had issue with is I think when you're in a leadership position a lot of times, and this is why it's imperative for me to not make people leaders too early. Because when you're thrust into that leadership position too early, you tend to forget what it's like to not be in that leadership position and to be a lower level guy. Sometimes I'm not a big believer in um, just because something is hard that it makes it good training. Good training often is hard, but there's a fine line in just doing something because it's hard and then calling it good training. And I saw a lot of that. And then I saw a lot of leaders that, made it as easy as possible on themselves. And they thought that was good leadership. One of my favorite quotes is, know your Marines, look out for their welfare. That's the most forgotten about saying in the entire Marine Corps. I can't tell you how many times, man, that you're just dragging out every ounce of give a shit out of your Marines, and just making their lives hard just to make their lives hard. And I get it. Marines is the toughest branch that there is. Every now and then you got to take a step back and say to yourself, is this good training or is this just hard training? Because hard training, not necessarily, just because something's hard doesn't make it good training. A lot of times good training, and I'll repeat myself, a lot of times good training is hard training. For sure. A lot of times most good training is hard training, as a matter of fact. But a lot of times people just pick something hard and go make you do it. You're like, it's good for them. It's not. Sometimes you're wearing down your Marines' bodies. Sometimes you're wearing down your Marines' morale. And sometimes you're just making their life difficult just to make their life difficult. And you're not making yourself, and by not, making it hard for yourself as well, you're not creating a person someone wants to be led by. No one wants to be dragged through the dirt just for the sake of dragging through the dirt. If you're gonna drag me through the dirt, drag me through the dirt by all means, but make it have a purpose on the other side. And a lot of times, I did stuff that really had no purpose. It was just hard. And because it was hard, I felt like my leadership perceived it as good training. It was. And I feel like that comes a lot from that early leadership, like I was talking about. You have to mature into that leadership role. You're dropped in it.
Some people succeed, like Mince did.
Absolutely, some people succeed, but there's some people that just that don't have a grasp. And Mince is he was a pretty mature guy by the time he got there too. Mince had jumped through enough hoops in his life that he was like me. I think he was maybe a year younger than me. He was an older guy too. So I mean, naturally, I think it was a little easier for him.
What's your definition of leadership?
Man, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point.
If you could like break it down into like a graspable
a good leader is experienced. A good leader will treat you with respect when your respect is earned. And a good leader is not afraid to be coached by all angles. And that goes along with being humble, so I'll throw that in there too. And what I mean by that is a good leader can take advice from above him just as much as he can take advice from below him. I don't think you should ever be afraid to get coached by a person that's below you, because sometimes the people below you are just plain good at things that you're not good at. Because like I said, no one hits every mark across the board. There's somebody that's going to be below you that's going to be good at something. Somebody, something. Um, and take advice from that person. Because it might not be anybody else that can teach you it. But if you're too busy, stroking your ego to listen to that person, then, you know. So I think I've knocked about three.
Yeah,
about three characteristics.
I like that.
That's pretty fair.
What's your definition of honor?
Being honorable to me, and I don't know, this might not be everyone's definition of it.
Well, that's why I said, what's your definition?
Honor is pretty broad. Pretty broad term. But I'd say when I think of honor, I think of someone that sticks to their beliefs. If you've got a set of beliefs, you should stick to them. And if you've been living by it, then you should stick to living by it. And that goes along with integrity as well. It goes along with integrity and honesty and everything. You should hold a core beliefs that hold you to some standard, and you should follow them the rest of your life and never break up with them. And that's honor to me.
How do you, or how did you, maintain your mental health through struggles you encountered?
Just in the Marines.
You don't need to just stay with the Marines.
I'll stay in the Marines because the Marines was very mentally trying. I guess I'll first speak about the difficulties, and then you can reroute me back to this question.
All right.
So I apologize.
You're good. No need to apologize.
But I think my main theory about the Marines is everyone gets in the Marines, and when you're recruited into the Marines, you're told, you're gonna be the baddest dude, you're gonna be in the baddest branch, you're gonna wear the baddest uniform, and you're gonna come home, and people are gonna be like, "That's a Marine." You know what I mean? You're gonna have that, and you're gonna be, a freaking Marine. The problem is that after it's all said and done, number one, there's no finish line till the end of your contract, and I'll get back to that. The problem is that after they tell you all this, you think you're gonna have this prideful role in being a Marine. They send you to this place to where everybody in the entire town is the same thing as you are. And it don't matter if you're on base, off base. You don't go home, when you're active duty. I mean, you do like for a week or whatever, once a year, but that's it. That's the only time where But you go to this place, you're told that you're gonna be this big, big thing, and then you go to this place, and everybody is that thing. Everybody's the same carbon copy. People are sick of seeing Marines, in fact, when you go out in town. Sick of it. You're the lowest man on the Marine pole. And that's damaging. Super damaging. Because you're just like, why did I achieve this big goal? Everyone I'm surrounded by has achieved the same goal. Like, if you're competing in a competition, and your one goal is to win a gold medal, and then shift it off to a place and everybody has a freaking gold medal around their neck, then you're just like, well, what was all that for? Oh, I'm sorry. And then you're like, what was all that for? But I don't know. That's my way of viewing it. It's not necessarily the main reason people become Marines, just to be big and bad and Marine. I mean,
some people could.
I mean, most of the people, honestly. But I think that damages your psyche a lot. That damages your psyche, to me. And I tell you, the other thing is just being homesick. Those first 2 years away from home, you know, after 26 years of just being here with my family and everything, just being pulled away from it, just, I didn't, and, you know, I wasn't a big traveler. I just stayed here and, you know, did my thing for a long time. And I think just being pulled away from it really messed with me for like probably the first 2 years I was in. And then after that, I tell you, the other big damaging thing is you're super motivated. And I'll say this is probably the third one, third and final. You're super motivated when you go into the but there isn't really a finish line, and no one tells you that uh, the hard shit keeps repeating itself in the Marines. It really does, and no one tells you that. You go into the Marines and you have this mentality to where like there's this big finish line, there's this goal. You know, some people it's boot camp, some people it's, you know, infantry school, it's your recon, it's, you know, whatever, MARSOC or whatever. You know, everyone has that place where they think like this is, you know, that's the finish line. Once I make it there, I'm this. For me, it was boot camp, an infantry school. For me, it was infantry school, and then, you know, you get through Paris Island, you get through infantry school, and then you land where you're going, and you think that it's like, you know, the hard part's over, but it just keeps being hard.
Yeah.
And it is, it's tough. And it's just like it's never ending, and you end up in this phase to where like your motivation slowly dwindles and dwindles and dwindles and dwindles over time. And even when I got to the fleet, I was still pretty motivated. And then we started going to the field, and then we came back, and then we go to the field, and then come back, and then go to the field, and then come back. And then over time, it's kind of like just so redundant, and it's kind of like that episode of SpongeBob where Squidward's just going through the same day over and over again. You know which one I'm talking about? Where like it's just like 4 frames of him just like
Yeah.
doing the same thing with the same face on, and his face just slowly like morphs into like sadness and depression, and that's what it's like. It's just like, man, it's Groundhog Day. It's Groundhog Day. You get done with, you know, this big hard field op, and you're like, oh man, yeah, I get to go home, and then you go home for a week, and then it just and then you just go out and do the same thing next week. And it gets really repetitive. And I, you know, if I'd have stayed in, I'm sure it would have, you know, changed something. I'm sure, but it's just staying in. Just I didn't see it. But
So, how'd you maintain your mental health?
how did I meet? Um, I had good people around me, man. Um, I had good friends. Um, played a lot of video games in the downtime. I don't know if that's maintaining it. I don't know. I've heard that's bad for you. No, I just had good people around me, and I think that's what helps. I think that's what a lot of people have these difficulties when they get out, because they've had these people to fall back on when they feel these feelings, and they get out, and these people aren't there anymore. And you know, you hear the expression that, you know, you miss a circuit, or you don't miss circuits, but you miss a clown. They get out and they don't have the circus or the clown. Um, and I served with some good people, and they kept my mental health good. You know, I was always laughing, joking with people, and that kept my spirits up. And of course, I met um, my wife out there. She'd kill me if I, you know, forgot to say that. Um, and you know, I met my wife and my daughter. Um, and that, you know, after a couple years, I had them to come home to every night, and that helped a lot. That made me feel a lot less uh, alone. My wife worked in mental health, so I definitely had that advantage there, to where I came home to a person that's experienced with mental health issues, and you know, sometimes I tell her, like, sometimes I was just like, and I'm just um, I'm just not, you know, feeling it mentally. Like mentally, you know, I'd get in these fogs and I'd tell her, and she talked to me, and that helped a lot. She, you know, she was there for me in those circumstances for sure, as I was with her as well. But it definitely helped me not feel as alone, and that helped a lot. Most people, most people don't have that when they're serving. I was fortunate enough to. So.
How do you come back from having a really bad day?
So when I'd have a bad day, like when I was working corrections or working on the Marines, I'd seriously, I just isolate myself. A lot of times, Loutman, he was my roommate. A lot of times, Loutman would leave, and I was able to still do that in the Marines. And even so, it's just Loutman. Loutman was usually asleep or whatever. I put headphones in and just wouldn't talk to nobody. In the place that I used to live, um, before the Marines, I think maybe like two of my friends knew where it was, and they know who they are for sure. Actually, no, there was a few. They didn't come over often though. I just didn't invite people, and I like that living, by myself aspect because I could isolate myself, and that's what I do. And then after a while, I would get sick of being by myself and isolating myself, and I'd just be like, okay, I'm ready to get back around people. And I think that's really what caused most of my bad days is just social exhaustion in those times. Um, and I was just so tired, and especially in the Marines, uh, people asked me what I was looking forward to the most about getting out, and it was always just being left the fuck alone. Like,
Yeah, you can't say that.
like, and man, that was always like my number one. And now I come home and I don't know. I feel like my wife and my kid are alone with me. You know what I mean? And this is still my dojo, but that's just what I like to do. I call me a hermit or whatever. I don't. My wife drags me out and makes me be adventurous, but I'm a homebody. And that's always what I do after a bad day. I know that's not what they say the most healthy thing is to do. Um, but me, I'm a person who's comfortable alone with my thoughts. I don't have any real bad demons. I don't think so. So I'm comfortable being alone with my thoughts. So my solution might not work for a person that isn't. So.
And you've also been going to the gym since you were how
Oh
old?
yeah.
And you haven't talked on that. You want to talk on that a little bit?
Yeah. Exercise, I think, to me is just huge. Uh, Not, I mean, I always hear, um, bless you.
Thank you.
I mean, I always hear um, people say like, exercise is good for your mental health. I haven't really experienced that, but it's good for your self confidence and your self esteem and your self image. And to be honest with you, going back to the leadership thing, I don't think I've ever had a good leader that was in a profession like the ones we've listed in this interview. I don't think I've ever had a leader, a good leader that was out of shape. I'll put it like that. But exercise is huge in my life. I don't think there was ever. I mean, I'm sure there were lapses when I was young and I was a teenager, but to me, you have to have it. You have to have it for some sort of self-respect, I would say. You just feel so much better about yourself after running your goal or lifting your goal or doing whatever it is that you do.
Any type of movement.
Anything. Just feel better. I've done that for a long time, and maybe that's unknowingly been good for my mental health. I don't know. I've just done it for so long that it just feels natural for me. But
yeah,
I definitely recommend it for somebody. If they're looking for something. And going back to you know uh, being a homebody, I literally since I've been here, I've just been scraping together gym equipment. Now I have that all in my basement now, so I don't have to leave my house for that either. So
That's awesome. All right, well, that's all I got. You got anything else?
no,
Appreciate it,
I
man.
think you asked some good questions.